Hello to everyone who may or may not be here. Welcome back to the stream where we play non-violent games, games that reward the player for intellectual and or emotional engagement, rather than for combat or any other kind of violent accomplishments. We are back with the Great Ace Attorney today. And I'm just gonna promote in some servers quickly. I don't know why I'm singing that. Yeah, that's the Shrek DreamWorks thing, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why that just popped into my head. Weird. Oh well. Say Livy. Alright, let's get started. That should be that. Actually, there is one or two more players. Hold on a second. I will be right there. I will be, I promise. Okay, now we're good. Again, hello to everyone who may or may not be here. Welcome back to the stream where we play non-violent games that reward the player for intellectual and or emotional engagement rather than for combat or any other kind of violent accomplishments. Let's go! 13th of August, 10:41 a.m. Supreme Court of Judicature, Defendant Antechamber 3. Ooh. I'm so sorry, Susato. Wait, was that it? Was that her voice? Hold on. Yeah, okay. I'm so sorry, Susato. I should have told you about the toxin. Ray? You have a strong sense of responsibility, I know. That's why you decided to shoulder the burden alone. No, that's not it at all. I was scared of my failure coming to light, that's all. So I hoped to retrieve the substance from the Englishwoman before anyone found out. Before the trial started, do you remember what you said, Susato? That you had no doubt in your mind about my innocence. That you'd stand by me to the last. I remember. And yet I didn't deserve your trust in me. I hid important details from you, Susato. I completely betrayed your faith in me. Hit me, Susato. I deserve it. No, in fact, throw me to the floor. No, that's too good for me as well. Drag me through the city streets. I'm no better, you know. Oh? He even though in my heart I knew that you'd pulled the knife blade from Miss Brett's back. There was just a brief moment when, in my mind, I doubted you. Susato? I'm sorry. After I stood here and promised you that I'd stand by you and always be on your side, I betrayed your faith in me too. And as such, I've failed you as a lawyer. No.
I think this situation has taught both of you a valuable lesson. Placing your unbridled faith in another is no easy task.
Yes, Father. That fact has certainly struck home. Which is why I can see more clearly now. So, Ray. Yes? Can you find it in your heart to forgive me? Oh, Susato! You know you'll always be a gallant, dashing lawyer in my eyes now. Oh, Ray. I was so scared, when it happened. I didn't know what was going on. The English woman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. I know it was you who stole the poison. Well now, whatever do you mean? Well now, whatever do you mean? And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet before collapsing on the floor in front of me with a knife in her back. It all happened right before my eyes.
Oh, sorry about that.
It all happened right before my eyes. And you were the only two people in the hut at the time. That's right. Just Miss Brett and myself. There was no one else. So I just don't understand how she could have possibly have been stabbed like that.
A great mystery indeed.
I still can't believe it happened. That's why I just couldn't bring myself to speak up. It will be all right. However it happened, and whatever really went on by the sea that day, I promise you that I'm going to prove everything you've said you saw is true.
Spoken like a true Mikotoba. Now, I think we should discuss what's coming up in the trial, don't you? We don't have much time. We must make sure we have our facts in order.
Yes, I expect the poison is going to come under close scrutiny in the upcoming proceedings. The police should hopefully have identified it on the blade by now. The trouble is, it's a completely new laboratory-synthesized blend of alkaloids. The police won't have any way of testing for it. Oh, I see.
Yes. Without this chemical reagent, it's impossible to detect the toxin.
Chemical reagent?
I sent a colleague of mine off with some earlier to deliver to police headquarters. I think perhaps you should have some as well, though, just in case. Hold on a sec. Just want to clean my glasses real quick. They're a little foggy. There we go. That's better. Special indicator solution for a new poison under development by my father's team. It's been created in strict secrecy and only exists in my father's laboratory. What's the matter, Zezaille? You're suddenly very quiet.
It's this newspaper article. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. I'm wondering how the information got out, given that it was a government secret. It was all the English woman's doing. What? It was when the professor and Saseki-san were being interviewed at the laboratory. That so-called English lady swarmed in, and without any compunction said to Professor Mikotoba,
Professor.
Surely your guest would love to hear about your work on that substance there.
It put me in a very awkward position, to be frank. But Soseki-san's curiosity had been piqued, so I had little choice but to give him a cursory introduction.
So then Soseki-san knew about the poison?
Yes, and it's highly likely that the reporter who was writing up the story about us would have caught a glimpse of the toxin too.
This Menememo-san. By the way, did that reporter join you all when you went to the beach? Oh, no, I don't remember the reporter being there.
Indeed, he shouldn't have been. I very much doubt anyone would have wanted him there.
Oh?
A known criminal had been given permission by the authorities to bathe by the seaside. Soseki-san pointed out that inviting a reporter might be problematic, and so the man was sent back to his office.
Yet he obviously didn't go back. He secretly followed the party to the beach and took this very candid photograph. And then presumably he posted it anonymously to the police. Huh?
Yes, that must be what happened.
Counsel! We've just heard that the new witness is now ready to testify.
That felt like it was almost crossing a line into something offensive.
We've just heard that the new witness is now ready to testify. The trial is about to resume. Please proceed into the courtroom at once.
It's time to steel ourselves once again, then. Defense attorney Ryotaro no Naruto.
Yes! Ray has put her faith in me now and told me everything, so I can't let her down. I have to prove that what she's telling the court is true. I have to prove what really happened that day.
th of August, 11:30 a.m., Supreme Court of Judicature, Courtroom 1. I hereby call this court to order, as we reconvene to continue the trial of Raymond Bami. Prosecutor Ouchi, have you summoned the new witness?
The label appears to be written in a foreign language that I don't know.
It's German, so your knowledge of English is going to be of little help here, I'm afraid.
Couldn't you just have written medicine on it in Japanese? Then we'd all be able to read it.
German is the international language of medicine, my dear. But yes, I can certainly see the merit in labeling the bottle in Japanese. Though I'm not sure medicine would be entirely appropriate. Yeah, no kidding. Nothing else to look at there, I guess. Prosecutor Ouchi, have you summoned the new witness?
Before I address that question, Your Excellency, I have some very important news to share.
Oh?
What news? And why does he look so happy about it?
During the recess with the collaboration of Professor Mikotoba's laboratory at Yume University, the police re-examined the knife that was used to end Miss Jezaille Brett's life.
Excellent. I admire your rapid handling of the matter.
Oh, too kind, Your Excellency, too kind. I was merely carrying out your instructions, of course.
I had the region delivered to police headquarters by rickshaw, so it would be there in due time. But judging by the man's swagger, I fear we might need to brace ourselves for the inevitable.
And, Counsel, what were the results?
This dagger, which was so cruelly used to end the life of the victim, has no trace of poison anywhere along its blade.
What? Are you sure about that?
I would stake the reputation of the police on it.
Armed with the Regent, the test is extremely simple. They couldn't have made a mistake.
Well, darn.
In short,
the accused's feeble excuse earlier. Now, the prosecution is ready to call the new witness.
The newspaper reporter who managed to capture a photograph of the crucial moment. The newspaper reporter who managed to capture a photograph of the crucial moment. Good. Very well. Officer, bring in the witness.
No trace of poison on the knife. But if that's really the case, how could the toxin have entered the victim's body?
Witness, please state your name and occupation for the court.
Okay. We gotta get him a voice.
Written memo of the show you news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille.
You think that's it?
Written memo of the show you news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille.
Nah, it's a little too high for him.
Written memo of the show you news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille.
He's definitely a fast talker, that's for sure. Rated memo of... No, he's definitely not that low.
Rated memo of the show news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille. Rated memo of the show news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille. Rated memo of the show news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille. Rated memo of the show news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille. Rated memo of the show news. I'm what people like to call a Jezaille. Rated memo of the show news. I'm what people like to call a journal. Yeah, I think that's it. Rated memo of the show news. I'm what people like to call a journal.
What's a journo, Father? Do you know?
It's simply a contraction of journalist.
I'm there when the news breaks, putting pen to paper to catch those scoops so they're in print the next morning. They don't call me the hero of the Herald for nothing, the nice guy of news.
Oh, so, it was you who took this photograph, was it?
Well, what have we here?
I'm sorry?
Ooh, brace yourselves, people! Memo says there's a scoop in the offing.
Okay, actually, that higher one was actually a little better, actually, for him, I think. Now that we've seen sort of how he holds himself a little more.
Female student up to foul play, defended by curiously handsome young lawyer in Supreme Court. The readers will lap this up. We'll set it above the fold at 72 point in a 5-leg format for the morning edition.
Huh?
Right then, let's start with your name.
Oh, it's Ryotaro Naoto.
Next, what made you want to be a lawyer?
Well, I wanted to reform our country's legal system, I suppose.
Ryotaro has suddenly become very ambitious, I see.
I just borrowed Kazumasuma's dream for a while.
By the way, my name is Takatsuchi Aiji. That's Takatsuchi Aiji. Aiji. The so-called dark horse of the Supreme Court. My objections strike fear into every defense lawyer's heart. No, the readers won't buy that. What?
Witness,
Yes.
what this court demands to know is whether or not you were responsible for the taking of this picture. It was delivered anonymously to the Imperial Police Bureau only yesterday.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a Jedi if I didn't click quick when presented with a scoop like that now, would I? Yeah, I wouldn't be a Jedi if I didn't click quick when presented with a scoop like that now, would I? Yeah, I wouldn't be a Jedi if I didn't click quick when presented with a scoop like that now, would I? Yeah. That's good. Alright. Sometimes stories call out to me. Sometimes I have to chase them down, but either way, you've got to be fast. Fast legs to run with and a fast hand to write with. It's no good if you don't note it down, I always say. That's what I call my minimism. My minimism. My minimism. That's what I call my minimism. Minimism?
Ah, yes, I remember your face. We met that day when you were interviewing myself and Soseki-san.
Yes, right. That was me. Minimemo again.
But you were supposed to be going back to the Shogun News offices after our meeting.
But the scoop is, I didn't. Because that Englishwoman's words had piqued my journalistic interest. Miss Brett's words? A criminal, left to do as she pleases, just because she happens to be a British citizen. It's all done. This country's judiciary is rotten to the core. The Supreme Court's rulings on what the paper they're written on, the police are just imperial pawns. Stay your tongue, young man. There are complex political issues at play. Well, anyway, I quickly jotted down those words you said in my memo pad. Are you ready? I'll read it out. It's all here. Right, here goes. I should like to go with everyone to see your country's coast. A serious criminal going on some junket. The people need to know about this. That's why I decided to sneak after them. To get the woman's story so I could hammer her in the press.
Do you mean to say that you did indeed witness it firsthand? The grim scene portrayed in this photograph?
Oh yes, I saw it with my very own journal eyes. From start to finish, through the viewfinder of my trusty camera.
Thank you, Menemo-san. You will now give a formal testimony before the court. You will state exactly what it is that you witnessed of the events surrounding Miss Brett's death.
Holy cow, I just realized something.
RM.
And the pen was empty, didn't have any ink in it. Makes me think it probably had some poison in it. We got him. Or at least we will have got him once we can prove it. Ish. You know. The camera never lies. The beach hut was made of shoddy old reed screens, so there were plenty of gaps I could see through. The Englishwoman was sitting on a stool when the student girl came in and started arguing with her. Seconds later, the girl pulled out a knife, throwing the Englishwoman to the floor as she stabbed her in the back. Also, that's why he's got a pencil, I think, you know? My smoldering journal spirit burst into flames. Quick as a flash, I whipped out my camera, ready to click. I pulled apart the rough weave of one of the screens and poked the lens through for the perfect shot. Reed screens, you say? Right. You could see them clearly enough in that great shot I snapped. The hut walls were just screens made of costly woven reeds.
Yes, it allows the breeze to pass through and bring some relief in the summer from the summer heat.
And it was a breeze for me to poke my camera through and see the whole thing hotting up. Ignoring for the time being the appalling invasion of privacy involved, did you witness everything that happened from the moment the defendant entered the hut? Oh yes, I saw it! I saw the whole thing from start to finish! And you say that you took the photograph through a gap in one of the screens. Luckily for me, they were pretty shortly woven. I pulled the reeds apart and thrust the lens of my camera through the gap. Would I get away with it, or would I be seen? It was the gamble of a lifetime. A tenacity of purpose that's considered admirable in a journalist, I suppose. Run a risk one day, run a scoop the next. That's minimoism in a nutshell.
At last, it would appear we have a genuine witness to this wicked crime. The evidence and testimony are extremely compelling. I believe we may be close to a verdict.
Oh! Wonderful news, Your Excellency! Wonderful!
Nevertheless, it cannot be denied that this testimony begs one very large question.
What question?
Exclusive news, a startling photograph, all the makings of an exceptional story for the reporter. Why then was the story never published?
Oh, that's right.
It seems clear to me that there are circumstances at play here that are yet to be understood.
Ha! More pathetic excuses.
Very well then, counsel. Proceed with your cross-examination.
Yes, Your Excellency. There's more to this reporter than meets the eye. He's keeping something about this case very close to his chest.
Hold it!
What made you want to see what was happening inside the beach hut in the first place? Call it general instinct. Can you think of a better reason? Oh, I don't know. Perhaps because as well as being a proven criminal, the person inside was a young woman. Ha! I see where you're going with this. Brace yourselves, people. He's painting the journal as a voyeur. It's hardly slander, sir. You had a camera and you were taking pictures without the woman's knowledge. No, you've got it all wrong, little student boy. Sorry? Sorry. To my mind, all that was inside that hut was a scoop. Nothing more and nothing less. Scoops know no gender, man or woman, it's all news. That's not even minimalism, that's just basic journalism. If only the courtroom was as indiscriminate. Right, so, if that's all buttered up, can we move on?
Tell the court, then, witness, what sight befell your eyes when you looked inside the hut.
A sight that vindicated my journal instinct, that's what. When I pulled back the reeds, I could see it all as clear as day.
Hold it!
So you actually saw Mamami-san entering the hut? Yep, and she was raging like my jealous spirit. And the argument you mentioned, what was that about exactly? You stole it! I didn't steal it. You that kind of thing. Talking about the poison, I suppose. The student girl walked right up to the English woman and really started laying into her. I mean, if she'd laid it anymore, there would have been eggs.
The man should have been an author. His descriptive talents are wasted on journalism.
But the student's writings fell on deaf ears. Like a Japanese person listening to English for the first time. He really ought to work on his similes first, though, to be honest. Anyway, the point is that the woman in the dock was mightily angry. And her temper finally got the better of her, it seems, dear me. Which was the climactic moment that I caught on film. Do you swear before this court that you actually saw the precise moment when the stabbing took place? Ha! The precise moment? I didn't see just that. I saw the whole hellish scene play out, from start to finish. I have here a simple plan of the beach hut. Perhaps you could use it to explain to the court exactly what you witnessed. Right you are. It's all here in my memo pad. When I first peered into the hut, I'm sure that the Englishwoman was on this stool at the back of the hut. Here. Yes, the accused own testimony confirmed that. She just sat at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly is what I have noted down. It's my turn to testify now. Try not to interrupt. Then, in the next moment, as I was watching, the evil student girl entered the hut. After a while, the pair of them ended up in the middle of the hut, arguing furiously. The Englishwoman went for the student, but the girl dodged out of the way. And in a flash, plunged the knife at their adversary's back as the two passed each other.
What you describe is a grim crime indeed.
Never sugarcoat the truth. That's what minimalism says. By the way, Minimo-san, whilst you were watching that terrible scene unfold before your eyes through the gap in the screen, did it not occur to you to try to prevent the tragedy rather than capture it on film? Dinners have to be observers. We can't get involved. That's our reason to tear. The tray. So you didn't converse with Miss Brett at all? Obviously not. An observer always remains on the outside looking in. And that's something to be proud of, is it?
Your Excellency, if I may. Yes, Professor.
I think the witness's last expertly phrased statement should perhaps be added to his formal testimony. Father, what are you...
I will grant the defense's request. Minimo-san, you will supplement your formal testimony with the aforementioned statement.
Well, nihilism is the foundation of minimalism, but I'll gladly prove that my words aren't meaningless. I never once set foot in the hut, nor spoke with the Englishwoman. I was there only as an observer.
He claims to have spied the whole affair from start to finish. If true, his testimony is devastating.
But it does seem as though he's holding something back, doesn't it?
If that's how you feel, I suggest that you trust your instincts and press him on everything he said. As you've no doubt seen done many times before in your role as judicial assistant.
Yes, I have. I've seen witnesses like this pressed often. I know exactly what to do.
Hold it!
The court is fully aware of your desire to capture the incident on film, I'm sure. But why, then, did you choose to post the photograph anonymously to the police? I'm afraid I don't understand a word that's coming out of your mouth. I'm afraid I don't understand the word that's coming out of your mouth. I'm asking why, as a journalist, you decided not to make a story out of the incident. Think of me as a sculptor who makes art out of the sordid private details of other people's lives. But I never discuss my own personal life on a principle. I mean, that's basic minimalism. It's not something to boast about. No doubt your burning desire to see the truth exposed and justice done was what motivated you. That's it. That's brilliant. My burning desire to see something or other exposed. There has to be a good reason why he didn't think to write an article about what he saw, though.
By your own admission, you were outside the hut. How then did you manage to take the photograph?
Ah, yes, that. I'm glad you asked. the two women inside didn't notice. Ha! Obviously not. If they had, where would I be right now? In jail, that's where. Which you'd think would make you reflect on what you were doing. No! A journo's job is to collect little snippets of life as unobtrusively as possible. Leave nothing but footprints. Take nothing but photos. Yes, that's spot on. Did he just make that up? The point is, the witness risked life and limb to obtain this photograph. And this photograph reveals the whole truth. There is nothing more to be said.
Hold it!
Really? You didn't set foot inside the hut at all? Are you quite sure about that? I think you may have the wrong impression of me. Wait a second. So, hold on. I just realized... Yep. The symbol on the pen is the same as the one on his armband. I already figured out that, you know, that's his pen, but I just thought, you know, I'd check that out too. I think you may have the wrong impression of me. We're talking about a murder scene here. My nerves were stretched to breaking point already. Oh, I see. You were scared. Maybe I did have the wrong impression of you, yes. It was all I could do to stay with a scream and hold my hand steady enough to snap the shot.
You really should have summoned help before thinking of your camera.
Minimalism and humanism don't always agree. And most of the time in those instances, minimalism comes out on top. As a sculptor of stories, sometimes I have to be cruel with my art. Yes, that's spot on. Surely he's making all this up.
Objection!
Son, until now, I've had a firm belief that newspapers are in the business of uncovering and publishing the truth. You're spot on there. The press doesn't lie, which is why I am proud to wear the emblem of the show news on my arm. In a way, that's more metamemoism. Sadly, though, it seems the journalists who write for those papers don't always share the same passion for the truth. What are you suggesting with those recriminatory words, Councillor? Metamemo-san, do you recognize this fountain pen? Ah! This pen was found at the scene of Miss Brett's death. In fact, the murdered victim was gripping it in her hand as she died. What are you... If you look at the barrel of the pen, you'll notice that its owner's initials are engraved there. R.M. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, Counsel. The initials of the accused, Ray Mambami. Is it a coincidence, I wonder, that your initials are also R.M.? No! Raisin Menamemo, R.M. That's horse dung. Can't you see? One of the central tenets of metamemoism is being a pencil user. And yet, as the court will clearly be able to see on your right hand, there's a very obvious blue ink stain.
It would appear that you would have rather carelessly left it somewhere recently. Your favorite fountain pen, that is.
Horsey horse dung. Metamemo-san, is it not the case that before she died, you met with Jezaille Brett in that beach hut?
Objection!
Why should we listen to this absurd nonsense? It's nothing but another excuse. Exactly. She knows will stand behind me all the way. I deny everything. There must be as many people with the initials RM as there are stars in the night sky. The defense has neither time nor the inclination to count every star in the sky. And there's no need, anyway. Because this pen has more to tell. Yes, there's another clue. A clue that undeniably proves who its owner really is.
In that case, Counsel, the defense will now...
Sorry. The defense will now show the court where this alleged clue lies. Of course, Your Excellency. The clue on this fountain pen that clearly reveals its owner identity is... Shooba-dooba-wop-bop! There's some sort of emblem here, look. But it isn't a universe. Oh, yeah. Okay, we did that already.
Got it!
As well as the initials, there's also an emblem on this fountain pen. An emblem that you will, of course, recognize, Menamaro-san. Goodness me, it's the emblem of the Shoyu News. In other words, the owner of this pen is an employee of the Shoyu News, whose initials are RM. Suddenly, the stars in the night sky don't seem so numerous, do they? Well, Menamaro-san, how do you respond?
Order, order! Explain yourself, witness.
So, this is how the mighty Supreme Court works, is it? Using coercive tactics to have well-meaning citizens reveal harmless secrets. I've used nothing but honest tactics. Alright then, fine. I won't try to hatch it anymore. Yes, not long before that grim tragedy unfolded. I, a Shoyu News reporter, on behalf of the public, conducted an interview with the English woman. An interview? You never mentioned this before, huh? When exactly was this? As I said, it was before that evil little student girl showed her face in the hut. It couldn't have lasted more than 2 or 3 minutes, that's all. It was just a brief exchange. But it came to nothing, and as we Menamemos say, the people don't pay their dues for unworthy news.
However insignificant you deem it to be, this court cannot overlook the meeting between yourself and the victim. You will testify now under oath about the precise nature of this meeting and what transpired.
Gosh, yes, alright, but... on one condition. Condition? In all good conscience, I couldn't speak out alone about this. You need to call back the other witness, Soseki Natsume-san. Soseki-san? Oh yes, according to my notes here, that man has a secret of his own, and brace yourselves. It's not a harmless one, it's big. What? And the memo states that one man's secret is every other man's front page story.
Very well. I will grant the witness's request in this instance. Officer, summon the earlier witness back to the stand.
Soseki-san, hiding something? The witness's secrets. I asked the Englishwoman for an interview, but she declined. So I left the hut without making a fuss. Then, watching secretly from the outside, I saw the woman being stabbed and the other witnesses come running. The detective realized that the victim still had a pulse, so he ran off to fetch help. That's when this writer man here asked the woman a very significant question. But he didn't say anything about that in his testimony, which is why Minimo demands that I reveal it now.
You mean to say the victim?
The victim regained consciousness? And when she did, you decided to ask her a question?
That's true, yes. No, wait, that's not...
No, hold on, let me check. That's, true. Yes. He did, and that's not all. The woman gave him a very definite answer. An answer that incriminates the accused. This is preposterous. Why am I only hearing about this now? Why didn't you mention this before, you yokel hack? It wasn't even a conversation. It wasn't even a conversation. Yes, I did pose the withering English rose a question. I don't deny it. But she could no longer speak. She was barely conscious even.
Counsel for the defense, I expect a thorough cross-examination to be conducted here. This court must and will know the truth.
Absolutely, Your Excellency. The reporter is claiming that Miss Britt implicated Ray somehow. What on earth could have happened in that hut? The witness's secrets. Alright.
Hold it!
You asked her for an interview, you say? Well, of course I did. I wanted to ask her about the incident she was involved in at the end of last year. About the case in which Dr. John H. Wilson lost his life. That's not the way I phrased it. Minimalism calls for straight talking. Why did you murder Dr. Wilson is how I put it to her. Yes, that sort of talking is as straight as a ruler. Ask any question, as if you're asking for a menu in a restaurant, I say. It's the best way. A veteran at the paper taught me that. And how did Miss Brett answer? With one simple phrase. Mystery is a woman's charm. Ooh, that told me. So I waltzed right out of there. Really? Something about that doesn't quite seem to fit together. Hello, educational quiet. It's a pleasure to have you here. Leave every room as if you're waltzing in the dance hall, I say. It's the best way. A veteran at the paper taught me that. How's your day going? It's going good. It's going good. How's yours going? Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. That Jenna's just finished school. Nice, nice. Learn anything cool? That was very persistent of you, considering that Miss Brett had just turned you away. Persistence wins the prize! Any minimalist will do that. Let them think you've left, and just when they lower their guard, that's when you swoop in for the scoop. And the fruits of your labor are all too apparent in this telling photograph. Not really? That's too bad. I'm not sure the young yokel student would rather not. I'm sure the young yokel student would rather not be reminded of this damning evidence. Actually, it's thanks to that photograph that we managed to identify this witness. I was able to go to my first psychology class, though. Oh, that's neat. At least I think so.
Sorry.
And now that you've found me, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I've got nothing to hide.
I'm sure.
Please do go ahead, witness.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that was fun.
Please do go ahead, witness. The court is eager to hear what you have to say. Try to stop me. There's a story to tell here, and I'm going to tell it.
Hold it!
And Soseki-san remained behind in the hut. That's right. That's right. Yep. Our author friend there was a blabbering wreck, shaking all over from his head to his toes, mustache twitching, eyes bulging.
What do you expect? You don't know the terrifying troubles that taunted me whilst traveling abroad.
Back behind baleful bars. They'll be coming for me, surely. That's all I could think. I felt as though I were gasping for air, drowning in a sea of cold sweat. Drowning in a sea of cold sweat. That's all I could think. I felt as though I were gasping for air, drowning in a sea of cold sweat. Poor Soseki-san. His experiences in London have scarred him deeply. As the world seemed to close in around me, I quietly recited a prayer to Amida Buddha. Eternal emptiness, empty eternity. Your end is coming for me, surely.
No sutras are to resound in my courtroom, please.
And now, we come to the crucial part. That's when it happened.
Hold it!
What question? What exactly did he say? Well now, you should hear that from the horse's mouth, I think. Don't you, Mr. Right-Hand?
Arrgh!
Out with it, you yokel hack! What did you say to her? What did you say to the dying Englishwoman?
Well, in truth, even for a grown man.
But then, all of a sudden, from that little beach hut, a young girl's panic-stricken cries for help pierced the air.
Ray.
I ran up to the beach to see what was happening, to find the defendant leaning over the collapsed victim. As soon as Inspector Sedalga saw Miss Brett on the ground, he sprinted off to get help. And then, just a moment later, I heard a faint moan. A moan from the dead Englishwoman. I nearly jumped out of my skin.
But what did you ask her, Soseki-san?
I asked her, who did this to you?
Don't protract this any longer. How did the woman respond?
She didn't. She said nothing in response. But
when in the stand, you will answer the questions asked of you unambiguously. Now, without evasion or reticence, I demand that you amend your testimony.
I will! I will! I asked her, who did this to you? But she never replied. She just lifted a trembling finger and pointed in the direction of the defendant.
Hold it!
So you tried to find out who the culprit was?
He was a question a fool for a minute. He does not remain who does not remains a fool forever. And having been labelled a criminal twice during my time in Great Britain, I was quick to make up my mind. Better to be a fool for a minute than remain a fool in prison forever. However, you've indicated that the victim failed to respond. Is that correct? I know why. I know why the Englishwoman said nothing. She was ignoring me because of my stoop and mustache, because I'm Japanese.
Oh dear. Soseki-san has really developed a dislike for the English, it seems.
Having read the report of his time in Great Britain, I can't say I'm surprised at his xenophobia.
But the Englishwoman didn't ignore you at all. Did she, Mr. Reckerman? Well, yes, alright. She did respond in a manner of speaking, I suppose. Oh, there's some stuff we haven't actually taken a look at yet. Hold on. Ah, yes, this must be the victim's blood.
Oh dear. Blood is never a pretty sight, is it? I'm going to have to fight the urge to run it under a hot tap and get it clean.
You've always been fastidious about cleanliness, haven't you?
I think this is something else, Father.
Hold it!
Miss Brett pointed a finger at the defendant. So Seki-san, is that really true?
It's not easy to stand here and say this, but when we first entered the beach hut, the Englishwoman was sprawled on the floor before us, with the student girl standing on the far side of her. And when I asked who did this to you, the Englishwoman summoned her last ounce of strength to point a trembling finger at the back of the hut.
The back of the hut, huh?
Which was, it can't be denied, in the direction of the student girl who stands accused today.
No.
So, Seki-san, why on earth did you neglect to mention this in your original testimony?
But fiddlesticks, I say!
This is not a British court of law. You will respond in Japanese.
Yes, of course. The Englishwoman did point her finger towards the back of the hut, but I was trembling, and she was trembling, and everything was a blur. And thinking about it, I feel as though perhaps she was pointing in a slightly different direction. Actually, no, not slightly, in a very different direction to where the student girl was standing. Somewhere at the back of the hut, where nobody was standing at all.
You mean that your memory of events, and the direction in which the victim was pointing are both unclear?
Yes, that's it. Unclear. Very, very unclear.
Attention!
Your Excellency, surely this proves the matter beyond all reasonable doubt. Yes, the woman may barely have been conscious, and yes, perhaps the finger wavered slightly, but there can be no doubt this was an attempt by the victim to confirm the identity of her assailant. Why? Because as the court can see, there was no one other than the accused in the direction the victim was pointing. It is now abundantly clear that no one besides the accused could have possibly committed this crime. Unless, of course, she was seeing the reporter looking through the hut, looking through the weaving and pointing at him.
I am inclined to agree. In the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, I believe we can now conclude this trial.
No. No!
Yay! The headline's writing itself. Dashing lawyers' hopes dashed. 92 points across the whole page. We'll do an extra edition.
This is a serious blow, Susato. Unless we're able to identify the true culprit and substantiate our claim with evidence, the judge will give his ruling and the trial will be over.
But that's impossible, Father. We don't even know how the crime was committed yet.
Impossible though the task may seem, we have no choice. We must think back over everything we've learned thus far. Somewhere in all those details, I'm confident we'll find the clue we need.
Ray gave us her account of how events unfolded in the defense antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us what happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying. And then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet before collapsing on the floor in front of me.
with a knife in her back. Wait a second. If the reporter could open the thing could open the walls of the beach hut so easily, well, he probably could have easily stabbed her in the back through the walls of the beach hut. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed at the back in a beach that was empty but for herself and Ray? Somewhere amid all the information we've gathered so far, there must be an answer to that question.
I take it, then, that the defense has nothing further to add?
So, the gallant yokel student's luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised.
In that case, I am ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter.
This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did he or she stab the victim? I know how.
Objection!
Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your adjudication for the time being.
Oh? To what end, Counsel?
The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her. An alternative theory? Ha! None exists!
Objection!
There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed this crime. What? And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time, by mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger in the killer's direction. This is fiction, fantasy.
Very well. As you seem so sure of yourself, Counsel, I am prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, young Ryotaro Nardo,
Yes, Your Excellency.
you will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly are you proposing the culprit was concealed? Hold on, I just wanna...
Take that!
Naruto-san would never give up, and I'm Naruto now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed in this location here.
Are you mad, Counsel? You're suggesting the culprit was outside the hut?
What?
Order! Order! Order!
But student lawyer Naruto-san Esquire, that makes no sense at all. But student lawyer Naruto-san Esquire, that makes no sense at all. You've just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals loitering about. I could swear to that. Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there is no way that he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut. Actually, Prosecutor Archie, there is a way. Ah! And, in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting that it is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed. You're bluffing! You're bluffing, you yokel!
The defense's assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, Counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut?
Well, I presented it now, but I have the first idea why I chose this piece of evidence, damn it.
Counsel, you're suggesting that this piece of evidence bears out your theory as to how the victim was stabbed?
It's something of a windfall, Your Excellency.
I think the word you were looking for, Counsel, was downfall. If your theory is correct and the knife was thrust into Miss Pratt's from back from outside the hut, there should be a visible trace somewhere.
A trace? Yes, on the hut itself. Armed with that idea, I must look through the court record again. Your Excellency, the defense would like to present a different piece of evidence.
Go ahead.
So it can't be that photograph.
Take that!
The original photographic print of the crime scene.
Yes, it's clearly visible in this print. The trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach.
Objection!
Dare you take us for fools? There's no hint of any such thing. I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what it is that I'm referring to.
Counsel, once again I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Where on this photograph is the trace of the stabbing, which you claimed it took place from outside the hut?
I'm thinking here. Let's save first, though.
Take that!
Look closely, just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds.
No, I can't. I can't see any such thing.
It's true that the hut in question had 4 walls, as you'd expect, however. By parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them.
This is extraordinary.
Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. And of everyone present at the scene, there's only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Raiden Menamemo-san, it could only have been you.
Objection!
This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies almost exactly in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume as part of this farcical scenario that the assailant was a knife thrower?
Objection!
No, of course not.
We're not.
If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death. Inside the beach hut, I confronted Miss Brett, but she just sat on a stool at the back of the hut, smiling sweetly at me as if she knew she was untouchable.
A stool?
Have another look at the photograph. The slit in the reed screen would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on that stool.
My word. So, in fact, the victim was...
Killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to her back delivered through the reed screen.
Ah!
Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively. But then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut, before the defendant, Membami-san's appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Menamemo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge.
This is will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means that the defendant, Membami-san, is innocent of the crime.
Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave.
I must say, I've never been more proud.
No, this can't be. The Aochi clan can't. What of my growth of hope? It wasn't all an apparition. I can't accept this. I won't.
I see no reason for the continuance of this trial. I will therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my final verdict and...
Yeah, I knew it. Well, this is all very convenient. This is how the highest court in Almighty Empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals? But we've established that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut through the reed screen walls.
And no one but you was in place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction.
So, your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now.
Irrelevant?
Irrelevant? Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed. It doesn't matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference, if you think about it. After all, this trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else.
What are you talking about?
Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed. Because of the dirt you dug up.
What?
Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness.
What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course. The poison? Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that the deadly poison you were developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it's been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett. Is that right?
That is correct. The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign that this particular poison was used.
I see. So, presumably that means that the victim had already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed. Ah.
Given that her pupils were clearly constricted, it seems highly likely, yes. If she had been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood.
Oh, how refreshing to have the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely. It matters not a jot who stabbed whom and whose back and with whose blade. Because, quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by the knife, but by the poison.
Objection!
But that can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Objection!
It's not on the blade.
Forgotten already, have we, yokel? During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the Professor Actual Psi assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever. So, let me get this down. The facts, as skillfully established by the defense in this trial, turn out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right? Well...
Order, order, order! But where does this leave us? How, in that case, did the poison enter the victim's body? There is an undeniably obvious answer to that. The lady most likely imbibed it.
You mean she drank it?
Have another look at the photograph here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and glass had been knocked onto the sandy floor of the beach hut. The poison could have been slipped into either.
So somebody made Miss Brett drink it. Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This will make for a great front page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at. It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's been established already. Established? What are you talking about? Don't tell me you've forgotten. That's a little hard to believe, given that the person who established it was you. Me? What on earth does he mean? Ooh, nobody capture those wide eyes. This is Pine Press Father, that is.
It would seem that this trial is not destined to end yet after all. I hereby call upon the witness to give further testimony.
That's right, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency.
You claim it to be impossible that you were the one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You will explain to the court in your testimony the basis upon which you make such a claim.
Amateur, and I'm a man. I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to start now, because that's minimemoism. For a brief moment, I thought I'd eliminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where is this trial going to take us?
Complete innocence.
Oh yes, I stabbed the English woman, and it's that very fact that proves I'm innocent. Because why would I bother to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? When I heard the student girl and that pompous English mirror arguing, it got my goat. If the courts weren't going to punish Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done.
Oh, also, thanks for the follow. I didn't notice you followed Educational Quiet. Sorry about that.
So you admit it then? That everything happened as I described? That you are the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the read screen? You can blame this miserable country of ours. A country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That's why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back, I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there. As someone who spent his life seeing that the truth is told, I feel really, really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got to her before me. That's right, you guessed it. That pretty little student girl. Now there's a woman after my own heart. You're implicating Ray again. She's the one who gave the poison to the English woman and ended her pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap! Jenna here's off the hook.
The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness had administered the poison himself, he need only have waited for it to take effect. Subsequently stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical.
I mean, unless he was making an alibi for himself. And therefore, this reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it's all quite logical. That's right, it is logical and true. I'm glad you've all seen the light. Justice at last! This is unbelievable. And after I had made so much progress in proving his guilt, Is he going to get away with it now? Think of Kazuma-sama and Naruto-sama. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel.
Very well then, Counsel. Proceed with what I assume to be your final cross-examination in this trial.
Yes, Your Excellency.
Hold it!
So, you do admit that you had murderous intentions towards Miss Breton?
The woman's very existence defended my sense of justice.
Your sense of... He's claiming some sort of righteous indignation.
She was pure evil, a cold-blooded killer who committed murder right here on our Empire's soil. But did our good-for-nothing government do anything? Not a chance. So I had to step in. Fly the flag of justice, put things right for the people. Yes, it was my civic duty, that's what drove me to do it.
So, in summary, murderous intentions, then.
Whatever you want to call it. The point is this. That Englishwoman was a blight. So I had to do what was right for society. Yet a real wrong was done by the student girl in the dock. A crime for which she must pay. Obviously, because the poisoning was nothing to do with me at all.
Hold it!
So, you still maintain that you didn't give the poison to the victim?
Obviously, that would be like putting a belt on your trousers when you were already wearing braces like these. The accused administered the poison, following which the witness stabbed the victim. An unforgivable act, certainly, but not one of murder. That crime rests on the accused's shoulders. This is how the law works, you see, yokel. Who knows, you may even learn something here today.
2 consecutive attempts on her life in the space of minutes. Quite a day for the victim.
Do something that evil, and you've got it coming. That's how the law works, the law of reckoning.
That's not the kind of law this court upholds.
You will reiterate why you were compelled to stab the victim then like this.
Hold it!
What exactly were they arguing about?
About what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago. That's what. The student girl was laying into the Englishwoman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, John H. Wilson. A professor of medicine. Invited here from England by Professor Mikotoba, no less.
Right, but the Englishwoman was just jeered. Her case was to be heard by the British Consular Court in Shanghai. However, there is little doubt that she would simply have been acquitted and sent back to her homeland a free woman. It was eating that student girl up inside, you could see it. I really felt for her. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Ray. Young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whenever you feel like it. No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen.
But this awful man is making all of this up. Susato, please, you have to make them listen.
Return to the dock at once, Memami-san. We are in the middle of cross-examination.
Hold it!
Your Excellency, please, I implore you. Please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly. He's a filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, great peeping Tom. Whoa, take it easy there. Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say.
Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to agitate the accused's remarks.
I will grant the request of the defense.
But Your Excellency!
This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak.
Oh, thank you so much, Your Excellency. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson, who was discussing the stolen poison. The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her being the one to think about how she killed Dr. Wilson.
That's true. Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of the new poison. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult.
That's true. I pestered Professor Migatoba until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory. But as I left, I was searched for Dr. Tail.
Miss Brett rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin we'd been developing, you see. And since Suseki-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away other than the fact that it was an extremely potent substance.
I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had a singularly terrible experience with a deadly poison. I wanted to look my old enemy in the eye. Surely you can understand that.
To find out if my be the university, the military would be dragged into it. The whole government, even. It would be a complete disaster.
And how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns?
She just curled those beautiful lips of hers and said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually.
Ah, yes. Menamemo-san, one small question if you don't mind.
I do mind. Can't you see I'm busy?
Clearly, you were outside the beach, but beach hut, listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably, then, it was you who wrote this article about what you'd heard. Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. The story was published in this morning's edition of Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else.
Sorry, don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, look at this. The entire article is almost what I said to Miss Brett word for word.
Ah?
Well, Menamo-san? As a Jedi, and as a citizen of a free country, I don't have to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of Menemoism. Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut. So what's this? So that's what it was all about. You were trying to cover up the fact that you were listening in. That's why you came up with that sticky story about me arguing with her.
Shut up! My stories never stink. Look, whatever you say, little...
Very well. You may amend your formal testimony.
Impetuous pepperpaw, as it happens. Once the victim had taken the poison, she would have been only minutes away from death. And yet, this man then proceeded to stab her in the back as well. There has to have been a good reason for that.
If it was the reporter who gave the poison to Miss Brett, then clearly he must have done it prior to Ray entering the hut.
Yes, that's undeniable.
But between him leaving the hut and the victim being stabbed, there was one very crucial change in the situation.
Sorry? What change?
The reporter overheard the conversation between Ray and the Englishman.
Ah, yes, that's it. That's when Memoa-san first found out the exact nature of the poison he used. That could be the key here.
If the victim had unwittingly taken the poison already, the reporter would have no reason to stab her. On the face of it, that logic sounds entirely reasonable.
But there's no question that this man was responsible for Miss...
Stabbed her even after the poisoning. I feel sure that everything would drop into place. That's what we should be looking for.
Yes, I agree. In order to do that, I must try to glean more information.
Objection!
Well, I can think of one reason.
What? What?
But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information for this newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut?
Of course he did. There can be no question of that. After all, when we were all in the laboratory together, all we were told was that it was a terrible toxin.
And there's one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Membami-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
Objection!
Where are you going with this, counsel?
Memoa-san has made it quite clear that he observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it.
Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Membami-san entered the hut.
At which point, Memoa-san overheard some worrying information.
What?
The extreme constriction, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people.
Ah! Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Membami-san being no exception.
Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale properties. You know, it was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day, and it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that was a terrible mistake, because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and was so traceable. As you listened in from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learnt of these facts. But you'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through the reed screen.
Objection!
But what good could that possibly do?
Isn't it obvious, Counsel? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect.
Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he?
Exactly. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one would have ever suspected.
This is extraordinary.
Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use, which he attempted to do by plunging a knife into the middle of the victim's back.
Order, order, order! The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward?
Well, there are a number of I mean, yes, I counter completely.
Objection!
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that in much the same way as he noticed the remnants of his top knot, he is clinging to lost hope.
Lost hope! Ah! You pathetic, useless, fallen samurai! Fallen? Who are you calling fallen? My budget and growth is on the rise.
I don't need a counter-argument. What are you talking about?
It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say. Gave it to the victim, you say. Stabbed her, you say. Lots of fine theories. But I don't need a counter-argument because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence? Yes, you make it all sound so plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing. Whereas I base my news on facts.
Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself.
I mean, what the professor said earlier in his trial. It's all here, in my many memos. Every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's what the show news is famous for. It's the power of the printed word.
But surely it would be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin being developed for the government. Indeed. All visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult.
How's that then? Blown the story wide open? See? I, right in memo, a mere reporter from the show news, couldn't possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's laboratory. Ha! But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it and used it to kill. And if that's the case, as you've identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here. What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin? My point is this. There is one way that you, Menamemo-san, could have stolen the poison that day.
I have heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have that this witness stole the poison on the day in question?
Take that!
The proof, Your Excellency, is this fountain pen.
A fountain pen? How can that possibly be relevant?
These magical pens somehow seem to have enough ink to write many thousands of kanji characters. I believe they arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now.
I swear by a weasel hair calligraphy. I swear by a weasel hair calligraphy brush and nothing else. These newfangled pens are merely a fad.
Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, obviously I love my fountain pen. Suck up a sukan of subjuous ink and one's work is awash with words at the blink of an eye.
That's right. Fountain pens have a small reservoir in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write with later.
What does all this talking of sucking up ink have? Ah!
And just as it's possible to suck ink up to the reservoir, it's also impossible to eject it through the nib again, of course.
My word. Can this really be?
Well, Menamemo-san, when you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir.
Ah!
Objection!
More obscenity, that never happened.
True, we've heard that there were procedures in place to prevent thefts like this from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to look inside a fountain pen of all places?
No. I'm a little ashamed to say that for fear of offending our guests, such a detailed search would not have been conducted. Well, this is quite startling, I must say.
I remind the court that this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped at the scene by Manamemo-san. So, the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped?
Are you suggesting?
The natural conclusion is that in your haste to act whilst the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass.
Objection!
There could be any number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using his pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
Objection!
No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink?
What?
As you can see for yourself, if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper reporter goes to interview someone with nothing in his pen? No, the pen was dropped after the poison that filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass.
Witness, what do you have to say in your defense?
So this is how a modern justice system works, is it? What if the ink in my pen... So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? I can always claw my way back into the game. I have plenty in reserve. Yeah! You claim I sucked the poison up into my pen? That's wild speculation, nothing more. If you thought you could bring down a fine, upselling citizen with a trick like that, think again. Yeah.
It looks like as though it's going to take one final decisive blow to finish this matter. As I see it, the situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether or not this witness did indeed steal the poison on the day in question. And therefore, it all depends on whether or not the defense can prove that he did with evidence.
Ha! No such evidence could possibly exist.
Objection!
Manamemo-san, this is how our modern justice system works.
What?
In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the point of speculation at this stage, I assure you.
Very well then. I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence.
This is it then. This will be the final piece in the puzzle. The defense can prove by means of this item that it was the witness's pen that was used to steal the poison.
Take that!
Counsel, what is that bottle?
This bottle contains the unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question.
Ah!
Yes, that poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method.
Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of the poison.
Ah! A reagent? What?
One drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, Manamemo-san, is all it will take to solve this case beyond all reasonable doubt. No, you can't. I won't. Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, the defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once. This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to this. Tried to hold its head as a civilized nation, but bowing its head to every foreigner that I took up arms in the pen. I found out all the name of justice and righteousness. Yes, Susato, with me. I'm there.
Yeah!
Did I do it right? That was a Susato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryotaro takedown. The instant the first drop of the reagent touched the nib of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present. saw it there in the lab. The poison. The devil got hold of me, and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out carefully. And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen. Yes, that's right.
Answer me one thing, Menemo-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose?
Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all. Too juicy for a Jedi like me to pass up. Then why did the Englishwoman end up dead? I went into that hut intending to quiz her on her situation. That's all. As a reporter. A known killer enjoying full freedom. Evading justice by leaving the country. I told her what I thought about it. And she just laughed in my face. Oh, what's this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism. Really, you must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways, you ignorant plebeian. What did you call me? This country, with its with its pretensions to a justice system, to a free press, it's really very depressing. You see our superior ways in the West, yet you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you oaf. Get out and crawl back to the cave you came from. That's when I remembered about the deadly poison I happened to have in my pen at the time.
What a terrible tale.
In my head, I knew I should just get out of there as quickly as possible, but I couldn't.
I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all.
I suppose it was my Jedi spirit, getting all fired up. I'd like to ask you something. Yes? You often talk about justice. But surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought. There's no justice in the press. Sorry. After that trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what had happened in that courtroom. And finally, I discovered the truth. It was a cover-up. That's what it was. A cover-up? What do you mean?
I would remind you of your position, witness. Be careful of what you say.
Oh, come on. Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national? Consular jurisdiction should never have come into it. And yet that puffed-up Englishwoman was going to sail away to the sunset a free woman. The only possible explanation is that behind the scenes, some deal had gone down between Britain and Japan. What sort of deal? I'd done my research, dug up all the dirt, it was all ready to be published. But you know what happened? The editor just tore the article up.
He came under pressure from the government, you mean?
If our government is going to let criminals walk free, if they're going to cross the free press, then what choice do I have but to see that justice is done myself? Let's not forget, Menemo-san, that you committed murder yourself, and you tried to lay the blame at the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than Jezaille Brett. What? The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all. I suppose.
It would appear that we have reached a conclusion in this trial at last. Counsel for the defense, Rayatar Nahodo.
Oh, yes, him.
Sorry, Your Excellency.
Just, musing in a manly
way.
Yeah.
It's almost unbelievable that this is your first experience at the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits.
Oh, Narun... Ryanosuke, you mean?
The way he handled the trial 9 months ago, and the way you handled this one. It gives me hope that we are genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land.
That's very flattering, Your Excellency.
Hearing the defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly that the future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries.
Thank you.
So, Prosecutor Alchi, do you have any final thoughts?
Prosecutor Ouchi? Takatsuchi of the Ouchi clan have been bested by a callow youth not once now, but twice. If there was any shred of my former self left, it has withered and died here today. Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it? Silence! Rather than living on in shame, I will end it all right now with this blade. For that is the true path to Alchiism. Alchiism?
One hopes that's the only way in which he'll be modeling himself after the witness.
Sprig of my topknot, the time is right for farewell. Hope is lost forever. Takatsuchi. Ah.
Now, in regard to the defendant, Raymond Bami-san,
Yes, Your Excellency.
I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you not guilty.
Woohoo!
Court is adjourned.
Alright, and that is where we'll stop. Thank you so much to everyone who wasn't here. Thank you for stopping by Educational Quiet 1. And thank you for the follow. And I am excited to continue this game and continue Life is Strange True Colors and continue Unavowed, with Unavowed being this Saturday, and I look forward to it. So that's that, and I suppose I will see you all on Saturday. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening and a wonderful few days until I see you next.